welcome back. I missed you. I thought we could finish reading Fire in the Sea today. Let's see. Where did we leave off? We finished Fire in the Wood. We finished I couldn't think straight, so I thought crooked. We finished My Father Remembered What It Was to Be Small. And we finished Owl Started This. And we also finished I May Be Silent, but ... So the next chapter we haven't finished is The Minute I Heard My First Love Story. And that is on page 87. Here we go. The minute I heard my first love story. Friendship and love, or the hope of them, make us glad to be alive, seem to change the world. Here's the poem for which the chapter is named. It says, The minute I heard my first love story. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. This is by a Persian poet named Rumi, and it was translated into English by Coleman Barks and John Maynard. This next poem is called Heading North. I love you more than a tree full of frogs or a bursting creek, because you hear loud ants, the scrape of shaving, and the sea making love with rocks. You leave rainforests where you walk, parrots and pythons, intricate orchids, slipping from your freckled shoulders like embroidered gowns. You don't stop when it stops. I'm axle to your wheel, careering magpies, mottled doves, quick flapping away from the first car for hours. This poem is by Richard Tipping in Australia. This is a dry point painted in green ink. It was done by Gabor Peter in Hungary. It's called Hawaiian Gardens. This one is called Losing Track. And this poem reminds me of a friend of mine. Long after you have swung back away from me, I think you're still with me. You come in close to the shore on the tide and nudge me awake the way a boat nudges a pier. Am I a pier, half in, half out of the water? And in the pleasure of that communion I lose track. The moon I watch goes down. The tide swings you away. Before I know I'm alone again long since. Mud sucking at gray and black timbers of me. A light growth of green dreams trying. This poem is by Denise Levertov in the United States. And this is a oil and canvas painting done by Isami Doi in Hawaii. This next poem is called My Heart. My heart is a lake. Come and row your boat on it. I will cuddle your white shadow, breaking into jewels against your sides. My heart is a candlelight. Please close the window for me. I will burn myself quiet to the last drop, trembling by your silken dress. My heart is a wanderer. Play on your flute for me. I will stay the quiet night through, listening to your tunes under the moon. My heart is a falling leaf. Let me stay in your garden a while. I will leave you as a lonely wanderer when the wind rises again. This poem is by Kim Dong-myung. It was a poem written in Korean and translated by Chae-hyun Kim. This next one is called Quiet Pain. This poem is kind of special to me. I'm not gonna go into why, but I think it's really beautiful. Deep in the shady stillness of the rain tree's thought, I walk blindly into your silence with you, sitting there like coral rock. Your familiar face is strange. Outside, cicadas cry rekindles the flame. We retreat into ourselves, children of sky and earth. Quiet pain lingers like coral dust. We are both afraid to say, I love you as I love you. This poem was by Konai Taman in Tonga. This poem is called Silver Swords. At cold daybreak, we wind up the mountainside to Haleakala crater. Our hands knot under the ruff of your old army blanket. We pass Protea and carnation farms in Kula, drive through desolate rock fields. Upon this one place on earth, from the ancient lava rivers, silver swords rise, startled into starbursts by the sun. Like love sometimes, they die at their first and rare flowering. This poem is by Juliette Kono in Hawaii. This next one is called Why Don't You Talk to Me? Why do I post my love letters in a hollow log? Why put my lips to a knothole in a tree and whisper your name? The spiders spread their nests and catch the sun, and by my foot in the dry grass, ants rebuild a broken city. Butterflies pair in the wind, and the yellow bee, his holsters packed with bread, rides the blue air like a drunken cowboy. More and more, I find myself talking to the sea. I am alone with my footsteps. I watch the tide recede, and I am left with miles of shining sand. Why don't you talk to me? This poem is by Alistair Campbell in New Zealand. This next poem is very simple. David Young is a translator who translated a lot of ancient Chinese poetry, so Li Po and Tu Fu were the two big ones. Something I really love about the ancient Chinese poetry is the focus on color and scenery to describe emotion. One of my favorite poems is called, I believe it's called The River Merchant's Wife. That one is not in this book, sadly, but maybe we can read it another time. This one is called Tu Wang Lun. I was just shoving off in my boat when I heard someone stomping and singing on the shore. Peach Blossom Lake is 1,000 feet deep, but it can't compare with Wang Lun's love or the way he said goodbye. This poem is by Li Po and translated by David Young. So I really encourage you to check out some of Li Po's work and do food as well. This next chapter is a bit silly. It's called What is the Opposite of Riot? Some poems surprise us into laughter with their almost expected rhythm or rhyme, or with an unexpected shift of thought that rings suddenly true. Look at their horse. Their horse is amazing. This one is one of my favorite poems from this chapter. It's called Some Opposites. What is the opposite of riot? It's lots of people keeping quiet. The opposite of donut? Wait a minute while I meditate. That isn't easy. Ah, I found it. A cookie with a hole around it. There's more than one way to be right about the opposite of white, and those who merely answer black are very, very single track. They make one want to scream, I beg your pardon, but within an egg, a fact known to the simplest folk, the opposite of white is yolk. What is the opposite of two? A lonely me, a lonely you. The opposite of cloud could be a white reflection in the sea, or a huge blueness in the air caused by a cloud's not being there. The opposite of opposite, that's much too difficult. I quit. This poem is by Richard Wilbur in the United States. And this is a silkscreen done by Adolf Gottlieb. It's called Flying Lines. This poem is called Writing Lesson. I learned two things from an early writing teacher. He held a nervous filly in one hand and gestured with the other, saying, "Listen, keep one leg on one side, the other leg on the other side, and your mind in the middle." He turned and mounted. She took 2 steps, then left the ground. I thought for good, but she came down hard, humped her back, swallowed her neck, and threw her rider as you'd throw a rock. He rose, brushed his pants and caught his breath and said, "See, that's the way to do it. When you see they're gonna throw you, get off." This poem is by Henry Taylor in the United States. And this is A Foreign Groom on Horseback. It's pottery from the Tang Dynasty in China. This chapter is called I Thought the Earth Remembered Me. The natural world challenges poets and artists to capture its beauty and variety, the wonder of things being continually reborn. In modern times, as we have become more remote from that world, we realize that nature can be destroyed by mankind. So our poems and art often express an urgent desire to understand, value, and restore connection with nature. As you can see, there's this boat that's at the mercy of the great wave. This is a very famous painting, and you'll see it a lot. This first poem is called Sleeping in the Forest, which you should imagine doing if it helps you sleep. Sleeping in the forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they flowed light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell, as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least 12 times into something better. This poem is by Mary Oliver in the United United States. And this painting is not a painting. I lied. It's ink and colors on silk, done in the early Qing dynasty, attributed to Liu Du in China. My pinyin is not very good anymore, so I hope you will forgive if I make any mistakes pronouncing things. The next poem I wanted to share with you is called Behold, e ikemai. Behold, e ikemai. Above, above, all birds in the air. Below, below, all earth's flowers. Inland, inland, all forest trees. Seaward, seaward, all ocean fish. Sing out and say again the refrain. Behold this lovely world. This is a traditional Hawaiian chant, and it was translated into English by Mary Kavena Pukui. When I was in beginning hula, we did a little practice dance for this song. So it's kind of nostalgic for me. Also, I do apologize if my voice appears to be kind of going in and out. I'm trying to record as much content as I can. The next poem is called Town and Village. A town is made of iron, stone, and wood. A village is made of palm fronds, people, and great silences. I am attracted to the villages, but I live in the town. Why is this? I always ask myself. In the town, I can hide from the great silences that fall at evening. This poem was by Albert Wendt in Samoa. And this painting is a watercolor. And it's called Mokapu Fisher Village, done by Ben Norris in Hawaii. This poem is called Looking for a Vainiha. One mountain vanishes, and then another, as rain clouds roll in from the ocean. And down the range at Hanalei, a third peak loses its place in the new slant of squalls. How can I tell you where to find Vainiha? Even the falls, darting down the cliffs, will disappear from their vertical tracks, to emerge singing among reeds and moss stone drums. I can only say that water has its rituals, dark and inexplicable as the chant of creation. When you arrive at the twin bridges of Lumahai, stop for a while the double stream will hold you and tell you a legend of gods seeding the flood. Male for the narrow waters, female for the broad waters. Look past the gingers and plumerias by the swamp. Flowers are for some other time. Today is the day for acknowledging rain. See how it floats the mountains and softens stone, how gently it takes you to the valley of Vainiha. This poem is by Ruben Tam in Hawaii. The next poem is called Hearing the Names of the Valleys. Finally, the old man is telling the forgotten names and the names of the stones they came from. For a long time, I asked him the names, and when he says them at last, I hear no meaning and I cannot remember the sounds. I have lived without knowing the names for the water from one rock and the water from another, and behind them the names that I do not have. The color of the water flows all day and all night. The old man tells me the names for it, and as he says it, I forget it. There are names for the water between here and there, between places now gone, except in the porcelain faces on the tombstones, and places still here. And I ask him again the name for the color of water, wanting to be able to say it as though I had known it all my life without giving it a thought. This poem is by W.S. Merwin in Hawaii, and this is a print by Dodie Warren called Shanshui or Shanshui. This next poem is called From High Water. I believe it came from a longer work. Listen to the raindrop, the underground water, mountain water, tickling, trickling, dripping deep in the heartbeat of the massive ranges. Black, razor-edged mountains with purple peaks. They clutch each other in perpetual mockery, wild like a tightly packed formation of warriors, ready to die. High water of the mountains, seeking the plains, there is no straight path for you. As the crow flies, those rocks defy you. Yet you cling from outcrop to precipice. You grind them down, explode them like laughter. Like spider silk, you fall, like a poem gliding across black boulders, convoluting now through plunging ravines, where prawns and crabs gather, carelessly bouncing off the stones. You spray the beauty of creepers and forms that mimic cliff shapes. The mountain air is trapped in the solitude of the whirlpool, and the water echoes the rhythm of rushing feet, like a long column of highlandmen seeking the life in the cities below. This poem is by Apisai Enos in Papua New Guinea, and this is a oil and canvas painting done by Georgia O'Keeffe called Waterfall, End of the Road, Iao Valley, Hawaii. This next poem is called Hokusai's wave. The two opponents brace. The wave gathers itself, slowly climbing the air, and the boat climbs the vast cliff of water, steeper and steeper, the endlessly unfolding, fluid and glassy slopes. But the glittering arc does not fall, the boat will not break. There is only one wave in the universe, and Hokusai is the master of it. This poem is by Olga Cabral in the United States. This woodblock print is called Great Wave off the coast of Kanagawa. And it was done by Katsushika Hokusai in Japan. This painting was done by Ruben Tam as well. It's called Islanding Greening, and I suppose it's from a series called Archipelago. It's acrylic done on paper. This poem is called A Stone Souvenir, and by the way, it's actually considered bad luck to take rocks from the island and bring them back to the mainland. The old legends say that it lays a curse on you, so I would beware. I'd like to get a little stone from your beach to take home as a souvenir. Lifted from the tide line, from the hum of the sea, the sky will cling to it. Dark eye of some other time, round as Io, unblinking in the island wind. Basalt in its rights, olivine, cinder, dense, cold, the cold of the fallen. And hue and stone, leaving our island on the plain tonight, riding the sky homeward. This poem is also by Ruben Tam, and so is this acrylic work. This poem is called I Want an Island. I want an island where I may be alone, feasting on the sands in different expanse. Here, others want to cage me, and I am afraid. There on my island, I will press my feet into the sand. Its cooling particles will soothe my soul. The seagulls will glide softly above the pandanus grove. I will feel my printed island with my eyes, my hands entangled among the waves, crouching beneath the sky. The one whom I yearn for is curled against the horizon. At times I cannot help smiling. My island, he's calling me. This poem is by Konahelu Taman in Tonga, and I believe he wrote Quiet Pain as well. You'll have to remember for me. This is a wood block print by Paul Gauguin from France. It's called Autite Pape from the Noa Noa series. It says it in there. Autite Pape. I really like this picture. You probably know from my bird video. I really like birds, but I'm actually a little intimidated of them. Anyway, it's by Joseph Stella, and it's called Sparrows. They're so pretty. And sparrow is a lovely word. Here's a poem called Rain on a Spring Night. Rain on a spring night, which, as a resident of Oregon, I am very familiar with. Congratulations, rain. You know when to fall. Coming at night, quiet, walking in the wind, making sure things get good and wet. The clouds hang dark over country roads. There's one light from a boat coming down river. In the morning, everything's dripping, red flowers everywhere. This is translated by David Young. I mentioned him when I mentioned Lipo and Tufu. I always preferred Lipo, but my poetry teacher in college was a Tufu fan. It's kind of funny, we had a silly rivalry. Anyway, it's working out. This is by Elizabeth Keith. It's called A Moro Umbrella Jolo Salu, which I'm not sure what that means, but it's a color woodcut. This one is called Rain. I can hear you making small holes in the silence. Rain. If I were deaf, the pores of my skin would open to you and shut, and I should know you by the lick of you if I were blind. There's something special smell of you when the sun kicks the ground, the steady drumroll sound you make when the wind drops. But if I should not hear, smell, or feel, or see you, you would still define me, disperse me, wash over me. Rain. This poem is by Hone Tufare in New Zealand, and again, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name. Here's another example of Chinese poetry. It's from The Pond in a Bowl. Who says you can't make a pond out of a bowl? The lotus break I planted not long ago has already grown full size. Don't forget, if it rains, stop in for a visit. Together, we'll listen to raindrops splash on all the green leaves. This poem is by Han Yu in China, translated by Kenneth O. Hansen. And this picture is of a celadon dish made with carved bamboo chapter is called The Afternoon Swam By. One of the main reasons poets write and artists paint or sculpt is to try to capture the fleeting beauty in our lives and give it more lasting form. Several people have asked me why I write, and I have repeatedly said and really like the idea that poetry is a form of alchemy. We deal with things in our lives that sometimes can be very traumatic while you're going through them, and it can take years before you're ready to think about these things or try to deal with them. And for me, going through some of these things, poetry helped me turn some of the negative events in my life into a form of beauty, and the lessons that we learn from the things that we go through. I just feel like for me personally, writing is a way for me to take my bad feels and turn them into something I can be at peace with. This poem is called Afternoon. The afternoon swam by like a giant fish with red translucent scales. In its stillness, the palm trees were copper, and coconuts round with the clanging of a gong. My eyes were sweetened in the orange sifting of oboes. This is pretty cool. I don't know how well you can see it. Can you see it? They're tiny, tiny goldfish. So cute. This was done by Korai in Hawaii. It's called Fish Cross, and it's a screen print with gold leaf. It's really cute. This next poem is called Beach Rainbow. Heedless of the spray from the steaming waves, the shell sleeps, buried in sand, rolled by the sand shifting as the tide shifts, not hearing the noise of the thundering waves. The shell lies down lightly. Someday, this beach too, the earth's crust shifting, may turn into fields, or perhaps into the floor of the sea. The shell does not worry about the far future, does not covet the form of the clouds drifting in the sky, does not pine after its lost body, parted by death. Idly, not sobbing, not scurrying, resigned to the march of nature, without anguish, quietly drifting. In a typhoon, bending its ear to the din, baked on the sand in the burning sun, picked up by a man in a daydream, turned into a button even, unconcerned. Seashell, beach rainbow, keep your eyes on your beautiful dream. This poem was written by Takahashi Shinkichi in Japan, and it was translated by Jeffrey Bowens and Anthony Thwaite. I'm not sure if I ever said who wrote this, but it's by Wong Fai Nam in Singapore. These are pilgrim flasks from the Roman Empire. They're blown glass. I like that she chose this one for beach rainbow. This is a poem that I really like. I had it printed out and put it in my binder for a while when I was in school. It's called There Are Poems. There are poems that are never written, that simply move across the mind, like skywriting on a still day. Slowly, the first word drifts west. The last letters dissolve on the tongue, and what is left is the pure blue of insight, without cloud or comfort. It's by Linda Pastan in the United States, and this is a construction. It's done by George Peters, and it's called Angels Between Clouds number 3. I suppose he must have built it, but I don't know what created the picture in the middle. This next poem is called Evening. The sun horse, panting and snorting, reaches the shores of evening, kicking his hooves and flicking red dust, his vermilion mane wet with perspiration. He throws red foam from his mouth. The mellow-colored evening comes and places her hand between his pricked ears. Her long fingers feel the hot breath from his nostrils and take the bridle from his mouth. The restive animal, tamed and quietened, walks behind the evening slowly and goes into the stable of darkness. This poem is by Mohan Singh in India, and it is translated into English by Balwant Gargi. I just love the imagery of the sun being represented by a horse. I think it's such a beautiful mental image. This painting here is called Luakahi Evening, and it's done by Lionel Walden, oil on canvas. And this is the last poem in the book. It's called Horse, Horse and Tree. Anyone who's anybody longs to be a tree, or ride one, hair blown to froth. That's why horses were invented, and saddles tooled with singular stars. This is why we braid their harsh manes as if they were children, why children might fear a carousel at first, for the way it insists that life is round. No, we reply, there is music and then it stops. The beautiful is always rising and falling, We call, and the children sing back, one more time. In the tree, the luminous sap ascends. This poem is by Rita Dove in the United States. And this is a drawing of a stable done by an anonymous Kano School artist. So that's Fire in the Sea. I hope you enjoyed this book. I think it's one of my favorites, and I'm really thankful that you guys liked the first half. So I hope you'll also like the second half, and I hope that it'll help you to sleep and paint beautiful images in your mind, so that as you're falling asleep, you can imagine beautiful things.